right. Well, it's kind of good to get started. I will say this: the long kind of summer thing that I've worried about, I can see it rearing its ugly head a little bit in the last week. We just need to play somebody, and because of the couple of injuries we've had, we've played a lot 1 against 2, and I don't even know who all my ones are. So we've played mixed and matched that. It just seems like we know each other's plays. We know what each other's doing more than normal. I don't really have a scout team. I've done everything I've done has been 1 against 2, and so it's been a lot of good things. The competition's been good. The bad things have been we just know each other so well that we're sick of each other, and so we're looking forward to an exhibition game. As far as their injury update, Marvin Clark, X-rays were better, but I think he's still, maybe 2-3 weeks away. And Kenny Goins, I think he'll be able to maybe play in a couple weeks, maybe even by the first game, but that's up to the doctors. So, and that's hurt us a little bit because I think those two guys are the power forwards that maybe would be playing a little bit more. Although this last week, Javon Best has played a lot better, and that's probably who will start at that position. Costello and Schilling have been a coin flip. Costello has won the coin flip so far, but it's a coin flip on not who's the better, but who would stay in the least amount of foul trouble, because we've had that issue. And so I got to try to keep both of them on the court. And it was easier last year because we played, a little bit more of Schilling early and Costello late because we had free throw problems. Schilling has shot the ball really well from the line this year, so that doesn't seem like an issue. At the guards, right now we're going to go with Tom and Valentine and Forbes, and there's times that we could bring Aaron Harris in. Right now he's going to be a good 6-man coming off because he is an instant offense guy, and I'm going to try to play a lot of people in this game, but I think it's very important because of the number of question marks we have. I'd say right now we have 2 definitive starters, and that's Forbes and Valentine. And Tom has been pretty stable, but we could go with a bigger lineup there, and we could play 2 bigs up front. So we got a lot of mix and match guys. So every game, exhibition game, I think these guys are going to be playing for not only playing time, but maybe starting time. So, questions?
I mean, you just mentioned this, but maybe more to gain for some guys, even more to lose in this preseason, given your depth. Is that changed the dynamic of practices at all? And do you expect it to change in the exhibition as far as these guys knowing what's on the line for some
Well, what's changed in practice is when you're playing your best players against one another always, and sometimes, I got what's been a little hard is the 2 point guards that we played mostly with are Tom and Denzel. And when we have them on the same team, the other team, I'm expecting a guy like Harris or a guy like McQuaid to play the point. And as you all know, without a good quarterback or one that knows everything, other players don't look as good. So then I started dividing and putting Denzel on the second group some or Tom on that group. And so practices have been very competitive and very good, but it gives me a little harder idea on where we are a little bit because both groups know the offense so well or know what we're trying to do defensively so well. And then you throw in the trip to Italy and, we got a lot more in early. And it's just time to play somebody else. It gets that way in all sports. This is the one area of the NBA. Georgia's better because they practice about 8-9 days and they're playing exhibition games and you got more of them. That's not a bad way to go either, so maybe that'll be a good thought of rule change because I think anytime you're playing against one another, it's hard to hide the plays or what you're doing, and I think it makes it more difficult to get a real true feeling of are we that bad or is it the defense guarding us, calling every play out? Are we that good or, are we not doing the things we need to do? So it's going to be good to play somebody else.
Tom, Bryn, are you happy with his defensive intensity? Has that something that's really come back, especially since you're back from Italy and in these practices? Has it continued?
You know, Denzel's been our best player. There's no question about it. But Bryn's been one of our favorite players to coach this year. You know, he gained some weight. He gained some strength. He's gained some confidence. He's shooting the ball well, but he is guarding somebody. So we've upgraded a lot. And I say that half joking, but only half. I think he is a much better defender this year, and he's going to have to be because he's shooting the ball really well. I mean, him and Denzel have, you know, I think we're a better shooting team, but those two guys have made a big difference. But, yeah, I've been really happy with Bryn. He's really a coachable kid, too. I mean, you know, he's one of those guys that he's just dying to please you. And I'm starting to appreciate that now. And plus, he's doing so many other things so well that he's been a bright spot, no question.
I was just wondering how things are going just on the defensive end. I know that was a big focus.
Yeah.
And what you guys are working on and, you know, what you're seeing.
Well, we're working on a little bit of zone. Let's put that in your thing. We're working on a Hera pressing in honor of Larry, former Sparty. So we're doing those two things, but really we're trying to guard some people because you know the rule. Most shooters are not defenders. It's just kind of they go hand in hand. If you can shoot the ball, you don't defend it very well. We're trying to break that mold a little bit. And Denzel has improved his defense a lot. We think that Aaron has made some big progress. Bryn has made some progress in that area. Inside, I think we've done a pretty good job defensively. So I'm anxious to see how we are defensively because that, too, is hard because I'm playing sometimes, you know, as I say, we got at least two starters on both teams a lot of times, and that makes it for more competitive, but it gives you just a different sense of where you are. So I'll find out in a couple days or in a day.
Tom? ESPN came out with a college basketball player ranking today, or this morning, 26 experts, and Denzel Valentine was ranked third on that. Did you know about that? It doesn't look like it.
Matt had mentioned something that it came out, but that's a lot to live up to. What was the criteria?
It was about not only your individual play, but how it helps you win as a team as well. Not just being a star.
When you talk about how it helps you win as a team, I think he could be definitely there. He is definitely a team player that does a lot of things. Turnover, I hope we're getting rid of those this year. But hopefully he does a lot of things that helps a team win. I do think he, in the mold of Day, he's one of the better winners and guys that know how to win and can do the things that are needed to win. But that'll be something high for him to live up to, and I guess I'm happy about that because I know he can take a little positive publicity.
Tom, you're freshman. Is this a hard time to gauge where they're at, seeing as they haven't played yet? And a guy like Davis, I know you mentioned it a little last week. For us, it's hard to communicate. Is it hard to gauge where he is right now when it's tough to get him to?
Yeah,
I don't know, say much. I suppose.
So in other words, I didn't lose any bets on media day, huh? You know, Didi's coming along. He really is. He's my biggest worry now is he's losing weight, and he's just losing weight because he's probably working harder than he's worked, and I got to keep that weight on him. But even the other day in practice, he still does some things that are incredible. It's just keeping him going, keep him communicating. You know, your defense isn't very good if you don't communicate, and that's where I'm anxious to see how fast he picks up because he's got to communicate better than he has, especially mid and backline guy. He can see everything in front of him. And so we're on him every day about it, but he's making progress. He's been great to coach. And as far as the other two guys, you know, the guy shooting the ball as well as anybody right now is Kyle Arns, and yet he's still, you know, injuries fine, but it's just a lack of time he had. The guy that it's been the hardest on so far to me is McQuaid, because McQuaid, we're trying to play him at the point, we're trying to play him at the 1, at the 2, and that's hard for a freshman to do that. We have no choice, if we're playing Tum and Zell, he has to be the other team's point guard. But if I could play him at the 2 or 3 where he's more comfortable, it would be a lot easier on him and a lot better way to evaluate him. But he'll get to do that some in the game tomorrow night, so we'll see. I've been very pleased with all 3 freshmen, to be honest with you.
How much do you and Garland BS about your days at Northern, and is it kind of cool to play against a school where you played and coached like 100 years ago?
God, Mariucci called me yesterday. He's all fired up about the game. I think he's pulling for Northern, though. He ticked me off. But, well, as a purist, like you, Fred, as a purist in basketball, it is fun to play. I talked to their coach yesterday. The president's coming down. It's a fun thing to be able to do that with your alma mater, especially when your alma mater is at a different level. But I think they're going to be pretty good, too. They picked up a couple of good recruits. One kid who's really good, a point guard. And so I'm anxious to see how good they are. You know, Bill's a very good coach. He was at Ferris, did a great job there. And I think he's really turning Northern's program. So Mike and I are happy about that. But we did talk a little bit today of some of the things we went through as players there. And so, yeah, we reminisce a little bit. I reminisced with Mariucci yesterday a little bit, and had some fun.
Fred stole my question, so let me just follow up on that. Is there anything that you picked up those many years ago in that program that you can still tie to things that you do today as a coach?
Yeah, I'm very partial to walk-ons. I could pick that up from my playing days. Very partial to walk-ons. My walk-ons got it made as good as anybody here. Very partial to managers, you know, all the people at the bottom of the rung, because that's where I was. So I am appreciative of those people. But, you know, I think the one thing that I do talk about every once in a while, as I did, you know, 8 or 9 years ago when I gave my team the Division II pregame meal because we weren't maybe appreciating the game enough. You know, every time that I see us, if we don't practice hard enough, if we get a little spoiled in what we get, I always bring back my Division II days. You know, Terry Dembo and I were just talking the other day about a time we played at Penn State, and it was stormy, and we're coming back. We're going to play in a championship game of the conference on Saturday, so I wanted to get home, so we took a Division II trip, you know, grabbed an apple and a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Were you on that one, George? Yeah. You remember that one, coming through the mountains, 7.5 hours, whatever it took us to get back early in the morning, and that was kind of fun. Yeah, we did a McDonald's stop. You know, we really spent some extra money compared to Northern. You wouldn't have had a McDonald's stop. It would have been at one of those Piggly Wigglies, and you go in there and get some bread and some, you know, turkey, and you just put it together. Poor young guy's laughing. That's what the hell I did, by the way. So it's not very funny. I mean, that was serious. Ask Garland. But you know, I do think that there's an advantage of being in a Division II school, lower Division I schools. I mean, this place is Disneyland. I mean, sometimes, and being able to reflect back to when basketball, you know, you weren't playing it because of the media, because of the television, because of the number of fans in the stands. You're playing it in a purist way, just for the love of the game. And once in a while, I use those days to remind my players. And it's good to have Mike there too, because Mike starts talking about him. He really gets off on a tangent. It's a lot of fun.
Anything else, guys?
Yes.
Tom, does a guy like McQuaid, because of Forbes' development, does he become less needed this year, and is it harder to find a role for somebody like that?
No. You know what? It really doesn't. Number one, injuries, as we've learned in football. I mean, you better have some people if you're going to compete for anything. But number two, the advantage to basketball, it's like having some depth at running back. You know, in other words, we can play differently, faster. We can play faster on defense and sub more. And so I don't think, you know, I think Aaron Harris is a guy that everybody's waiting for, and they should be. But we've got good players. It's like when we had Chris Hill and Torbert, and we're bringing along Shannon Brown and Maurice Ager. That team went to a Final Four and contended. And if Ellen doesn't get hurt, I think had a chance to win it that year. So I don't think this changes my interest in McQuaid or where his role is, or in Aaron Harris, or in anybody else. In Didi, it's just a matter of him coming around fast enough. I think it was it Oubre? Who was the kid from Kansas last year that I think he went 12th in the draft, and I was watching our game with them the other day, and he played about 2 minutes in the game. Not everywhere is Kentucky, and so sometimes, I think Didi's going to play a decent amount. I think McQuaid will, but we'll see how they adjust to a real game situation, and that's what these exhibition games are for.
Anything else, guys?
All right, thanks.